Hello and let me play the music again. Hello and welcome to the Stacking Dingers Show, your home for all things MLB best ball. I'm your host Matthew, aka Sheep, aka Dark Sheep. You can find me online at D4RKSH33P underscore. And tonight we are hitting the NL West on this show. Apologies that the AL West kind of got lost in the void due to some scheduling snafus by myself. But we move on and we move on. We have Mr. Casey Bubba at BD Entric at the internet. I don't know if you're on Blue Sky or Twitter, but
Yep, I'm
I don't know.
everywhere.
Yeah, you hear him on the Bubba and the Bloom show, the Bench with Bubba show, the Breakfast with Bubba show, the Brunch with Bubba. Okay, well maybe he's not
Not yet.
at the mimosa hour yet on the show. But what's up?
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's always fun to be on. I was actually laughing earlier today, thinking, okay, I got Stacking Dingers tonight, and this is one of the shows I've actually been on like 4 or 5 times now. This is pretty sweet. I love talking Underdog. Like we've had you on the show, my show, and Bubba and the Bloom, and other Tuma and some other guys from Stacking Dingers have been on. So we love Underdog. So I'm pumped to talk about the division I love and hate at the same time. So this would be I saw the graphic to start the YouTube, and I'm like, yeah, Sheep's not wrong on this, but it's just like, yep, here we go again. But thanks
Oh,
for having me, man. I appreciate it.
yeah, just pop that back up there. Yeah, I had to grab that picture, that selfie that they took in
It's a good
Tokyo.
picture. I don't fault them. Like I've said so many times, like with my Angels preview or my Dodgers previews and stuff. It's like when I grew up, you hated the Dodgers. Like you just hated them. But now it's like I like so many of the players on the Dodgers. It's hard to
Yeah,
hate the Dodgers. Like I hate the team. I don't hate the players anymore. There's a difference.
absolutely. Like when they got like Mookie and Freddie, I just love both of those guys
Yep.
as baseball players to watch, and just keep adding on to it.
Like you got Kershaw. How can you hate Kershaw? Who can hate Kershaw?
Yeah,
Like of all people. Like come on.
right. So yeah, and for me, this usually I turn on baseball more after the family goes to bed, so I end up watching a lot of uh, West Coast baseball. So and like playing DFS, like I'm stacking Dodgers all the time, so that's the game I tend to watch. And you know,
Yep. Makes sense. The West Coast stacks always are a beautiful thing there. So, yeah, I don't blame anybody. But yes, back to the beginning. Thanks for having me. I always appreciate jumping on with you.
yes, we appreciate you. Appreciation all around. All right, so we are though starting not with the Dodgers or your Giants, but we're going to start with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I guess basically the big move in the offseason here is swapping Christian Walker for Josh Naylor. I mean, it wasn't a trade, but that's kind of the main difference on the hitters year to year. I mean, we got one of the best offenses last year, I think, just in terms of run scoring. They didn't have the same results of making the World Series as the year before, but this team put up a lot of runs last year.
Yep. They were number one in baseball in runs scored. So,
Okay.
yeah, they were a big one last time I checked. And maybe I'm wrong, but I was just doing a show a couple days ago, and that was mentioned a few times. I'm hoping that was accurate between the two of us on air. I've been wrong before, but yeah, for the fact checkers out there, they were
That
very good at scoring runs, and I'm with you. Like Christian Walker is a big part of that, but Josh Naylor wasn't too bad himself, so not a whole lot of moving and shaking in that regard.
Yeah, I think people are down on Naylor coming to this because the park is not great for his power profile, but I mean he's a good hitter. So I mean, if he can overcome that sort of stuff. We take a look at ADP. Pretty much, I mean, as a result of them scoring so much last year, we're seeing most of the team taken. We have Corbin Carroll is early, Ketel Marte, Josh Naylor's there, and I think for me, these early guys make sense. I'm having a hard time. I know he was hotter than the sun for a long period at the end there, but I'm having a hard time getting into Eugenio Suarez this year. Just like I know he all like this he always starts cold, quote unquote, but at some point his profile is just gonna like he's not gonna get hot and he's gonna be a zero. And at this price has gotten really tough for me.
Yeah, I'd say more than anything, it's the price. Like if you go back to Eugenio's year after year after year, he's like a high 20s, low 30s home run guy. Average is always low, but again, an underdog, we don't care as much about that. We want the points, and the power brings the points. That's one
Yeah.
thing he does. So he does it well, but I agree. It's the price tag probably more than anything. You look at other players going around, the 105 range. There's much more appealing guys that you could probably at least give you a floor with the ceiling. Where Eugenio, you're just hoping for the ceiling. There's a big difference there. So I'm with you on that. And that's why it's interesting. Like you were kind of saying, like if you're stacking the Diamondbacks, it's they score a ton of runs, but at least in the early rounds, is it really worth like stacking a ton of them? Is the question, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I do, I like a Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte pairing. And then from there, I don't really prioritize anyone like at the end or even the middle. Like if I need an outfielder, I have no problem just throwing, kind of a boring Gurriel on and like I don't know. I don't know what you think about him. And then anybody like McCarthy, Perdomo, Pavin Smith. I guess for me, I keep I keep still clicking on Jake McCarthy. I was pretty heavy on him early. I kind of thought he was going to have more playing time, but we go down. They brought Grandel Grichuk back. Alec Thomas is still hanging around. So I guess the later guys. Anybody really stand out for you?
Honestly, like Jake McCarthy is interesting because he's getting drafted after his ADP is 210. I don't think he's in a massive platoon right now. I think Grichuk, he's going to cut more into like a Pavin Smith at DH potentially. Like he could run into Jake McCarthy, but Grichuk's not going to play center field a ton, so you have to move some pieces around there. I think Jake plays at least 140 plus games.
Mm-hmm.
As a guy that can steal 30 plus bases, maybe run into 10 to 15 home runs. And if he's on the high side of those things, then that turns into a guy that is awesome at ADP 210. He's also going to bat towards the bottom of the order. So the total at bats, which you want to keep accumulating to count points in an underdog, is going to be a little rough. And again, ADP 210. It's like it's all baked into the cost
Yeah.
with him. So I think honestly, when you look at this D-back stack, if you want to get aggressive with the stack, you get your Carroll, you get your Ketel, you get your Josh Naylor. So you have two infielders and an outfielder. You could do some dancing around, and if you go and get a Jake later, around pick 200 or so, like it's not a bad four-man, all things considered, because you're finding a starter after pick 200. Sheep, it's not easy to find a ton of starters, especially hopefully non-platoon starters past pick 200. And Jake McCarthy shouldn't be that. So, and I remember like one thing that's like ingrained into my head talking to you in baseball over the years on my shows is, they don't have to always be the sexiest players like we want in season long that we want for like weekly and all this stuff. We want guys that can spike. And so a guy like Jake McCarthy is your fourth man of a stack. He's a guy that might run into a home run and steal like 3 bases in a week. Like there's all those kind of things that turn into some big potential points weeks that I love at that late ADP, honestly. Like, and then in my early drafts, I ignored it. And the more I've done stuff getting ready for the season, much more appealing at that point.
Got it. And I guess it's now that you mention it, like he's probably a guy because we've seen other guys jump up that are. I'm just trying to think a good example here. Like Joe Adele has passed him, right?
Yeah.
And Joe Adele probably has a little more power, a little less speed, but and kind of, more concerns about playing time. But so there's guy Garrett Mitchell, another guy, so there's some guys that have passed him that at this point, maybe we should be revisiting this, and I should be getting a little more Jake McCarthy again because he's passed by similar guys and he's kind of just hung around the same spot.
That's kind of my thing. Like I might be overly optimistic, but it's more just like you guys talk game theory all day long. Like if we're like the players you mentioned, they're on the hype train. They're moving up. Like Jake McCarthy, like Joe Adele could legit, and I love Joe Adele this season, could legit be platooning with Mickey Moniak before we know it, and that crushes all the stats we're talking about here. Like when we talk Jake McCarthy, The only thing really holding him back is an injury. So it's like, and he's not getting the bump. He's not getting it season long. He's not getting an underdog. I'm with you. Like I kind of ignored him early on. I'm sitting there going, maybe I shouldn't, because I kind of stayed off D-back stacks because we always talk, get your outfielders and do this and that.
Yeah.
But you can make it work if you go and make sure to target a McCarthy later to go with those other guys, and you're not that far out.
Yeah. All right. On to the rotation. Surprisingly, Corbin Burns is not the opening day starter, but
Yeah.
I didn't really know. Did they say anything? Why? Is it just?
No, I came out today and I just saw Zach Gallen starting over Corbin Burns, and I was shocked. The only thing on the top of my head was Gallen's been there forever. Let's let Gallen have it again.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could think of, because money talks, and money didn't talk in this situation.
Yeah, it was quite surprising to me. I looked first like, is Corbin Burns hiding an injury? But no, he's been pitching. Like it's not like he missed a start or anything. And it could be just that it didn't line up exactly too, or just like you said, he's been there for a while. He's been their guy. But we kind of have a clog behind them, right? So Burns and Gallen, and then there's Merrill Kelly, Eduardo Rodriguez, Brandon Pfaadt, Jordan Montgomery, and even to some extent Ryan Nelson is hanging out there. So if we look at ADP for them, at least in terms of what underdog people are saying, everybody's big into Pfaadt. He's been a small riser. We've talked about on the show how we've liked the last 2 years the amount of volume he's gotten, even for being like a young pitcher. He gets a ton of volume when he's pitching, but like it's kind of crowded here at the end.
Yeah, it is crowded. We're still expecting like Jordan Montgomery, Erod. Someone's got to get traded. That just seems like where it is, because honestly, Ryan Nelson's better than both of those guys mentioned, but Ryan Nelson's going to be the odd man out for now. So if you're thinking of drafting him, be prepared to have a contingency plan in that situation. I love Brendan Pfaadt. I think the hype train on him in drafts makes a ton of sense. The volume, the skill set. It's lefties mash him. It's kind of a combination of lefties hitting homers off of Pfaadt and just walks, which he's improved on each season, but not a ton. If he could ever just take that real big step, he is an ace caliber pitcher on this team. And so I have a ton of shares of Brendan Pfaadt. Like, if you're a guy that waits on pitching, which most people do now, like the ADP he brings you, he can still be your third or fourth pitcher, and you're sitting pretty. So
Yeah.
I love him. Nothing against Burns. Burns is a quality start machine. So in this format, that's great. Zach Gallen is Zach Gallen. He was down in innings last year, so that might be why people are off of him. But previous 2 seasons was great. Even in 2 seasons ago, they're not even tacking. If we go to Fangraphs, they're not even tacking on the innings that he got in the postseason. So it could have just been a little downer last season. He's still very good. But the Pfaadt hype, I'm fully on board with.
Okay. Yeah, and I find myself just not clicking Merrill Kelly and Eduardo Rodriguez. Just, I think Eduardo Rodriguez is the inconsistency from him the last few years, just with health and personal things. It's kind of hard to buy back in. And Merrill Kelly is, I think I just saw it over here, he's 36 years old at this point. He kind of had when he came back, he kind of had his resurgence, and I don't know, I'm not expecting any much more out of that. And he never really struck anybody out. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, he was good for a while. He might have his moments, but in a format where you can't add drop, it's a tough click.
Yeah. I guess, do you think we should be grabbing Ryan Nelson?
It's one of those, if like you are a fan of taking a 7th pitcher that you're hoping for someone to show up, like a Bubba Chandler that shows up later or something like that. I think Ryan Nelson, like I said, is better. Like in my world, it goes Burns, Gallen, Pfaadt, Nelson. That's where I see this rotation. And so if we can get at least a half a season of Ryan Nelson, and you're cool with building your staff to accommodate that, I think there's a lot to go with that. It just has to be a part of your plan when you're building it, is all I'm trying to say, because there are still some roller coasters and hoops he has to jump through, essentially.
Yeah. The biggest benefit, you're getting a guy who's not drafted in every draft.
True.
When it comes to him. All right. Next team, or anything else on the Cardinal or on the Cardinals? the other Arizona team.
The D-backs, they're pretty straightforward, really. They, like, for the most part, there's not a whole lot of moving and shaking there.
Yeah. All right. So next up, we get to the Dodgers.
Okay, move along.
If it wants to load, there we go. So, I mean, off-season moves, right? They sign Tommy Edman to the long-term contract. They bring back Teoscar Hernandez. Basically, they're running it back. I guess Michael Conforto is here. I mean, we know what they are. I think the one question, and we're kind of seeing it in even already with this Tokyo series, is like, what is the concern level for the age of these guys at this point?
It's a big concern, and that's kind of like one of the jokes I made all the time, because I have to make jokes, because when they just keep kicking the butts of the Giants, I have to try to laugh wherever I can. Um, my jokes always like they keep signing depth because of their age and injury histories. Like, that's just the jokes I have. I love Freddie Freeman, but the
Yeah,
dude's got a bad ankle, which is he had surgery on, so it should get better. But now all of a sudden he has a side injury that he hurt in the playoffs, which was never discussed ever until basically the first pitch of Japan. Like, that was never discussed. You have Mookie Betts, who, like, honestly, I think we need to pay more attention to this. Is he has the virus that we saw? Like, I don't know if it's the same virus, but he lost 15 to 20 pounds, similar to Kyber Ruiz last year, and Kyber was never the same. Now, maybe Mookie bounces back, but still something to, like, at least keep in the back of our minds in that situation. You mentioned age. Max Muncy is getting old, and it's just not the same. Like, you just go down the line with these guys, as you mentioned. It's why they have so much depth. It's why they rotate so many positions. There's a lot of players that it doesn't matter how old they are; they're still going to be great. Like Freddie Freeman's still going to probably be good if the side's
yeah,
fine. It's just my point being to your question is, yeah, it's a concern, but it's one of those, like, they have so much depth. Instead of playing 150 games, maybe they play 135, but they still
right.
crush. It's like,
Yeah,
how do you want to build at that point?
yeah. And for us, in the we're looking at the smaller season of underdog compared to the overall. I think the question is going to end up being that's going to affect it is how they get these guys their rests, um, where they fit in the off days. I mean, I guess the other thing they did add Kim. When is he going to be a factor? But, like, I mean, we see it. I mean, they have no problem batting Tommy Edman second, and having Kike there, and Conforto. It's just, we saw it in those two games what they can do even with Mookie and Freddie out, right? So the team's going to be good. That's not really the concern for me. It's just, how is the rest going to affect their production in the game that we play?
Yeah, no, it is. Like, you still draft the big dogs, expecting, like, and it's weird. Like, I just go down their ADP and underdog. Like, Shohei, I trust to pretty much, as long as they. My thing with Shohei is, if they want to start pushing the pitching side of it, how does that affect the hitting? I think it does affect the hitting. I'm not going to ignore that. That's kind of kept me a little wary of him, but still a stud. Teoscar, I think, is fine, barring an injury. He's good to go. And then Mookie and Freddie should be fine. It's like, again, you can't stack them all because they're all going within the first 30 picks. But to me, it's, if you like the Dodgers and you want to plan to draft the Dodgers, you do so accordingly. You just do it.
Yeah,
Don't draft Will Smith. Don't draft. I say don't draft Max Muncy. I probably wouldn't, unless you're going a deeper stack. That's the hardest thing, is because if there's four guys going to the top 30 picks, you have to like your later picks to go with it, and that's where it gets. Like, I have a ton of Michael Conforto. I'll say that much. I love Michael Conforto in that offense, but yeah, it's a deep team, to your point, but it's like, is it deep enough to stack? Is a very tough question.
yeah. I mean, I do it. I guess I'm a little higher on Max Muncy just from a weekly upside standpoint.
Well, I look at his
Uh,
ADP, and I think it's actually very good, actually, for
yeah,
to pair with the team. Yes,
yeah, right, yeah. But yeah, and Tommy Edman there, like I said, they'll bat him second. He seems like the guy that's going to play every day to me. Like,
love
he's
that
going to be
ADP of Edmund. Love it.
filling filling in everywhere. I've been off Will Smith. It was hard, last year I was highly disappointed in the results I got. Although, watching those 2 games, he was on base like every at bat. So
Stay
I'm
strong,
starting to
sheep.
doubt it.
Stay strong. Stay strong. It's like
Um,
I've pounded that drum for years. Stay strong, sheep.
I guess the one last question for you is Andy Paez. He was
No.
the starting center fielder those 2 games. How, is he going to play every day? Like, what is his role? I don't know. I have a lot of questions about what his role is going to be this year.
Rightfully so that you do. In my personal opinion, he should play every day. I think he's their best option in center field.
Yeah.
Now the questions we have is in Japan they face 2 lefties, so that's a question. After the series, they did send James Outman back to AAA, so
Okay.
that's something to keep in mind as a potential. Like, hey, maybe they're going to Andy run with this. You mentioned Hassan Kim earlier. Eventually, he's going to get called up. Does that mean Edmund goes to center field? And we get Pies out of the way. There's so
Right.
I'm basically highlighting your concerns for a second. I love Andy Paez. I think the talent is undeniable. It's a problem with the Dodgers. They've had a ton of really good prospects. They just never get developed because they have so much depth at the major league roster.
Yeah.
We see guys go elsewhere, like Michael Busch finally blew up in Chicago. Miguel Vargas having a big spring with the White Sox. Wouldn't be surprised if he has a pretty good season. You can just make lists of these guys that leave.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the struggling part here. I think Andy Paz is that good. It's kind of like my cop out with Ryan Nelson. Like, if you build a contingency plan and he's like your, if you want to go 7 outfielders or whatever, like, okay, Andy's a good one, because if he's in a Dodger stack and the Dodgers are clicking, dude's going to beast out probably. If they start moving the roster around, you might fall into some problems. I think his talent, he should be in the lineup. The Dodgers don't always believe in just personal talent.
Right. I mean, it tells you a lot that they have Chris Taylor still on this team. What
That's the problem. They got Enrique Hernandez, like all these guys that just like Enrique can play second and Tommy goes to center field on opening day, and I would not be surprised because that's just how they do things.
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy.
But I mean, if we look at ADP, I think Paez, and I guess he still had 231, but I think a large portion of the draft period he didn't have an ADP. I don't think people were really even tagging him on. So I think there is some leverage still to be had with him, and he's still a last round pick.
Yep. As a last dart, and maybe you go one of those deep stacks like you've talked about before. Like, maybe he's a 5th piece. Like,
right.
That's not the worst 5th piece to have.
Yep. So the biggest change is the rotation this year. They brought in Snell and Sasaki. Basically, you mentioned it. Ohtani is still supposed to come back. I still have doubts in my mind how much he's actually going to pitch this year, because I feel like he is. I don't know, because they had him pitch one game in spring. It didn't. Another thing, it didn't make sense to me. Like, they knew the schedule was going to be weird going with the Tokyo games, but it's like it suddenly dawned on them, like, oh, we're having him starting to ramp up, but it's really hard to ramp them up when we're trying to get guys like ready to make actual starts, and we need like guys ready from the bullpen, ready to go. And so I have a lot of questions there. That doesn't really affect us drafting here, but the biggest thing, Bubba, is these guys have ADPs that don't match their talent. They have ADPs that match the situation.
Yes. That is one of the better ways to put it I've heard so far. Is you're on the Dodgers, so you're going to get pushed up to begin with, and now it's like, what do you get? A couple things. It's like Blake Snell. I think he can be one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. 2 questions: do we get first half or second half Blake Snell? Do we get a guy that's not limited by the Dodgers? That crushes things. And you can just basically take this story down the list of their team. And that's why I don't think I have a lot of shares of any of the Dodgers. I understand the complete upside. Like, again, Snell could be great. Glass now at ADP 111 could be elite. Last year he set a career high in innings before he got hurt. Like, we've never seen him pitch a full season. Is that something you want to gamble on? Again, if you draft 7 pitchers and you know that this is your wild card, okay, that's great because even if it's 110 innings from Glass now, it could be elite innings.
Yep.
So you build around that. So it's a great starting staff. They have a lot of starting pitching depth. They're already tapping in to that starting pitching depth due to injuries
Mm-hmm.
with this team. And for a best ball format like Underdog, for me at least, it's very tricky to trust a lot of these pitchers. And to me, no more than one on a roster because
Yeah.
there's questions for almost all of them.
Yeah. For me, I've just been taking the cheapest one. I've just been grabbing Glass now the most, and any of the other guys, if they fall, because everybody knows that it's not a secret as to, the situation. So sometimes you'll get in a room where one of them will will fall 10 spots or so, and then I'll grab them then. That's kind of, but I agree with you. Definitely only one of them. I'm totally out on Sasaki, I guess, this year. I just don't.
Yeah.
I have
And
too
zero
many.
shares. Yep.
The red flags just pile up there for me. I guess I think Dustin May would have been, quite interesting. If he had not had the last 3 years or whatever. Like, I think it's tough to click on him. Like, just never pitched in innings, right?
Dustin May's never had the innings, and he is great for pitching ninja to throw gifts out with. But if you dig under the hood more, it's like once teams realized, hey, we don't have to chase a slider like 12 inches off the plate, he's really not that dominating. And so it's like if it's a disciplined team, he really struggles, and that definitely lowers his value for me.
Yeah, and Gonsolin has just never been a real dominant guy, and
No.
I don't like if Kershaw didn't pitch at all this year, I wouldn't be surprised.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's just so funny with a Dodgers team. It's like we should want to spend an hour like, oh, we want to draft this guy and this guy, and it's just like they're a phenomenal real life team that has a gigantic headache and almost a pass for most of their team for fantasy.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely. In my heart, I was ready to maybe get a little back in on Bobby Miller this year, just a few shares here and there, but now with a potential, coming back from concussion, like on top of all the issues he had.
I know I took a couple shares with my last pick period, like as a 7th pitcher. Like I
Yeah,
get it because I think he's better than Dustin May. Like I really do. So it to me, and I'm not expecting there not to be more injuries in this rotation. Like there's a window where Bobby Miller is going to get a chance, and if he can just find a little bit of that success, I think it's not a bad play. I'm glad you brought him up because I wouldn't have. I would have forgot about him. But I get it's again. People are been annoyed if you build properly, knowing you have like a stash. I think Bobby Miller is like a really good stash, honestly, because he's getting. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets 12 to 15 starts this year.
yeah,
And like it could be interesting to see how they turn out.
yeah. All right. Yeah, it seems like you said, it seems like we should be talking longer about
We
them,
should have spent the whole
but
show on the Dodgers in theory. Like they spent $300 billion. We should have been on them, but we just weren't.
yeah, and it's the depth, right? It cuts
Yeah.
into everybody's playing
It's a
time.
phenomenal real life team. Like it's perfect for real life baseball.
Yes. All right. Now we move on. I will just open up the floor to you, to your Giants. What is different last year to this year on
What's
the
different?
hitting side?
Oh, geez, what is different? Well, we got Willie Adames at shortstop. That's an upgrade. Love him or hate him, people are like, oh, he can't hit that great in SF. You're probably right, but he can still hit a lot better than most players we've ever had. So you take that grain of salt and run with it, folks. That's like the biggest just change. The rest of it, it's players that have been here. It's how do they rotate them, I guess is the proper terminology here. Like, do we see the platoons? Do we let certain guys play that should play over other old people? I have very strong feelings on some of this, but the Giants don't seem to agree with my strong feelings. So that's your biggest changes in the hitting department. If you want pitching, I can go to that, but we can wait on that too if you want.
Well, I guess two. I got two questions for you, maybe three, on specific guys. One is Elliot Ramos, everything that personally I've looked at, I see no reason why he can't just come back and do what he did last year. Maybe I didn't really phrase that as a question. That was more my opinion. But do you agree with that?
Absolutely love Elliot Ramos. He's one of my favorite Giants, one of my most rostered Giants in underdog and season long formats. I agree. What he did to me was not as fluky as people try to pretend it was. Like, yes, he was a rookie. He wasn't like fresh out of the box rookie though. Like he's put a few years, prepping for this. And you just look at all the underlying metrics. Like they showed he did what he was supposed to do, if not less. Like he should have done more in theory. I think the power's legit. RBIs are a fickle beast. But what I loved is just watching games. It's one thing I talk about a lot on my shows, and you've been on them, is sometimes like we can dig into all the stats we want, and I have nothing against them because they help us talk so much and usually on the right path. But watching games goes a long ways as well. And watching Elliott over the last month or so of the season, the dude's plate discipline for a young ball player, I was thoroughly impressed with. Like, there's a reason they lead him off. Like, if you look at Fangraphs, his OBP doesn't like jump off the page to you for a leadoff hitter. It's good, but it's not like he's not 400 OBP or something. But the dude over the last like month or so of the season, he put together just at bats. Like even if he struck out, he would work 8-9 pitch at bats. He was doing things that young players don't do in baseball. Not especially young players that hit 20 plus home runs. So long-winded way, but you hit a guy that I love, and I am a very optimistic on Elliott. And it leads to the final point: is he's so young. Like there could be another level to this. Like we saw 20 home runs. What's to say he can't hit 25 to 27 homers and drive in 100 RBIs and hit 275? Like the skill set proves he has it in him, and I like him a ton. So yes, Elliot Ramos, I sign off on that.
Yeah, and for me, if you know Lamont Wade Jr. at the top, I guess I get why he's leading off. But you look at this core of the lineup,
yes,
I'm with you. I think the naysayers on Willie Adames are just a little bit too far. I understand where they're coming from, but I think people have taken a little more extreme. I mean, maybe I'm a little biased from him being a Brewer, but I think it's just he's still a great hitter, and
yes,
he's
29. He's 29. It's not like
right.
he's like 35. Like he's still young.
Right. And I've always been a big Matt Chapman fan, and
yeah,
he's always been a Bat X darling, which is my preferred projection source. So he's always that. So I'm stacking this team a lot, and so that leads me to the last question. I mean, with and without the current back issue, what is your just general thoughts on Young-Hoo Lee? Because he is my most drafted player. I have gone to town on him. I just thought, let's take a look at his ADP.
128-ish.
It's been falling. It did rise a little bit, yeah. But just where he's been going, I've just been loving adding him on as a sixth outfielder. So I guess without the back issue, and then now with maybe 2 years of health stuff, what's your thoughts on just where he could be this year?
As long as the back's healthy, and it sounds like it is, like I'm just going to take the news with what we have. I love it. Absolutely love it. The fact they want to hit him third, at first I'm like, what are you doing? And then I looked back at like last year, we saw a little bit of power showing up before he got hurt. This spring, he's been showing a lot of power. Even if the power is like I'm not talking, we're talking 30 home runs. I'm talking 15, I'd be pumped. Like, give me 15. Because to me, he's Steven Kwan with more pop, if that makes sense. Kwan might steal a few more bags than Lee, but they both have great OBP skills. They both can hit for a very high average. On a Giants team that struggles to score runs, if you have Lamont Wade, who has good OBP skills, and you put Lee in the middle to drive guys in, perfect for real life baseball, which in turn helps what we are talking about now, fantasy baseball. So, I think if Lee was leading off, I'd like him, but not as much. Him hitting third, like a guy that could hit 300 and hit third in the lineup, the amount of runs he could drive in is going to be pretty sweet, I think. So I'm with you. I think his ADP is phenomenal. Much better for this format than potentially, like season-long formats. it brings back conversations, and I already mentioned the guy's name, but you and I in baseball, I remember very clearly, it might have been on Stacking Dingers last year. We're talking about like Stephen Kwan, is his floor worth the boom weeks type thing.
Right.
I think Lee has more boom weeks than a Stephen Kwan with a floor, which is very enticing.
And you're getting 40 spots of ADP or
Yeah,
50
that's,
spots. Yeah, that I
that's
mean
pretty sweet.
that's kind of been my, I've been making that same comp as, he's Stephen Kwan but later. And like for me, like it's also a guy that we don't have the book on, right?
Yep.
We have he could be going where Kwan is going next year, or he could be going last round because he gets hurt a lot. So those are the kind of guys that, like, I think their ADP doesn't reflect uh, the full range. It ends up in this middle range with those two potential outcomes happening.
Yeah, I agree. And to your point earlier, I guess it's a great team to stack, even if it's a mini stack to go with a pricier big stack. Like there's I think a lot to like here. Or you can make this your big stack and put a pricier mini stack around it. Like there's lots of ways to use the Giants to your benefit because we've only talked about like the top part of that lineup. There's some kind of wild cards you could throw out there if you want to as the draft goes on as well.
Okay, let's hit those. So Tyler Fitzgerald was a guy who showed quite a bit of pop last year. Big strikeout problems potentially, and so there's him. And also lately, Gerard Encarnacion has come up in conversations, and he's come to an ADP. I'm guessing those are the two exciting guys you're talking about, not so much Mike Yastrzemski.
Yes, not Mike Yastrzemski, RIP, hopefully by the end of the season. Yeah, Fitzgerald's a wild. Well, these are all wild cards at this point, but Fitzgerald, we saw a guy with 20/20 appeal with horrific plate discipline. So if he resorts back to his 230 ways, we could be in trouble. But if he even hits 250, he's gonna play every day at second base. Like the power speed combo could be enticing. So that's not a bad late round piece to a stack. Jared Encarnacion is a guy that I have vocally been let know that Wilmer Flores, thank you for your time. You helped a lot with this team. This is a problem the Giants have had for years with um, so many players. They just will not let go, unfortunately. And Wilmer Flores needs to get out of the way because the Giants don't have power. You put Encarnacion, like a legit guy that can hit 30 home runs, like legit could hit 30 home runs, even in that ballpark. So again, we talk about every team has a couple guys you can take late and have a contingency plan on. Fitzgerald's one, but I love Jared. Jared's one if they just let him run with it. It's huge. And I'll throw out, if you just want boring is beautiful, Lamont Wade's going to lead off every game versus right-handed pitching. And in an OBP-powered underdog scoring system, Lamont Wade's not bad. Like, he really isn't. I don't know if he should be playing every day because even Jared can play first base. Like, there's room. I want Jared in the lineup is the basics. But Lamont's going to play pretty much every day versus righties, if not most games versus lefties too. And he'll lead off versus righties, and he's going to have a 400 OBP. That will add up a lot of points when things are all said and done.
That's interesting. I had not considered him at all, but yeah, Fitzgerald was more on my radar just for the everyday.
Oh, he's the spike guy. He's your spike guy 100%. Like he will, like if you're going for broke, you want to win an overall. Like Fitzgerald's that guy because he could crush your team or like be a zero, or he could win you weeks in a heartbeat.
Yeah. All right, on to the rotation. We have Logan Webb as the stalwart here year after year. And then, Robbie Ray's coming back. They bring in Verlander. Hicks, we saw fade down. He started out hot in that, converting back to a starter. And then there's this group of three kids. I don't know, where do you want to start with this rotation?
Well, I'll just kind of give you my quick thoughts, and you can ask deeper questions if
Okay.
you like. Logan Webb is just a consummate pitcher. I say it time and time again. People would say he can't strike guys out. No, he can. Look at his game logs in the past. There was a season where he struck out all kinds of guys, and he flat out said, "That's what I wanted to do." Like he knows what he's a pitcher. He is. I will never compare someone to Greg Maddux, but just watching Webb do what he does, he wants to work deep into games. He wants to help his team win. So he doesn't care about our fantasy numbers, but quality start machine is what Logan Webb can do. That's why he's going so high. Farther down the list, though, it comes down to risk reward. Robbie Ray could be one of those guys that the Giants aren't going to hold him back on innings because of his age and his contract. Like, they want him to go. Great spring. He's added a pitch, which could be huge. So Robbie Ray's got the potential for like an amazing ceiling if he can just stay healthy. I love Hayden Birdsong. It looks like he's gonna win a rotation spot. Thank goodness. And it's funny he's going right next to Verlander in drafts because they are the same person. If Verlander was Birdsong's age, the videos of I was down on the Giants signing Verlander for his performance. All about him teaching young kids. And like the first day of spring, he has a video of him and Birdsong working on Birdsong's delivery on a new pitch. I'm like, perfect. Yahtzee. Here we go. Because if you look at them, they're almost the same physique. Like, they are the same dude, same wind up, everything. So if Birdsong can just stay on Verlander's hip, we could see some big things. Birdsong's biggest thing was walks. His overall stuff is amazing. Strikeouts are great. We've seen it all spring. We saw it like 3 starts last year, just dominate. Birdsong would be that guy at ADP 236. If he can get 25 starts this year, could just blow through. Like, he could get you to the playoffs. I don't know if he'll get you past the playoffs because he might hit an innings limit, but he could get you to the dance. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's someone that I've missed out on so far.
Well, because he was like a very outside shot of making the rotation for a while there. Because I said it forever. Like, knowing the Giants the way I do, I have no inside track for those that don't know me, but just watching them enough, it always felt like Harrison's the dude because he's got the pedigree, he's had the chances, so on and so forth. So Birdsong would have to wait. Harrison's been so bad, and Birdsong's been so good. Like, they kind of forced the hand.
Right. Yeah, and going back, the list there, Hicks and Verlander in this rotation, like, even if Harrison was in there at this point, like, how long is Verlander going to hold up this year? I mean, I'm not drafting any of him. I think he's just a time bomb. I think he's going to look good for a few starts and then have a sore this or same thing with Max Scherzer. Oh yeah, my thumb hurts after these sort of little things that I think are going to hold them both back. I've just been out, despite them both looking fine when they pitched this spring. And Hicks just never been. But Robbie Ray I have him right now on 30% of my teams.
That's a big tournament type play. I like that.
Yeah, I'm just going for the upside. I mean, I have been a pretty big Robbie Ray fan in general, especially in the Seattle year where he was awesome.
Yep, I think it's a great play.
All right, no one else.
Not really.
To push maybe potentially into that route group. I don't know how to say his name, but
I love Landon Roop. I love him, but for our format we're discussing, it's tough to push. Like, season long, like the second he's available, start adding him. I think the talent again. It's just when they started signing too many pitchers, I was like, well, there goes that, there goes that, there goes that. But here we are.
All right. Unless you have anything else, let's move on to the Padres.
Let's do it.
Off season for them, pretty quiet. Other than bringing in, this like Jason Hayward, Connor Joe smushed together into one outfielder. It's pretty much the same team returning in terms of hitters. I think it seems like the negativity around them is still kind of high based on, the offseason ownership kerfuffle and stuff. But, we're taking Merrill and Tatis in the first and second round. And then it's pretty easy just to stack on guys as you want them. So I guess any standouts, and then what do you think about, this left field group that they have here?
The left field group's an absolute disaster. It should be Tirso or Ellis, but it's not, unfortunately. So I digress on that one. Um, yeah, it's a really good stacking team. This is going to be a good ball club, barring health. And you mentioned most of the ADP after Tatis, Merrill, Machado come well after pick 100. We're talking almost 168, and the rest of that's 200. So I love it. When you look at OBP wise, and Xander Bogaerts, Jake Cronenworth, both are really, really good late picks, like really good late picks. Maybe more floors than ceiling.
Yeah.
Like we just talked about Fitzgerald, more of a ceiling than a floor. These guys are more floors when
Yeah.
you look at it. But I guess that'd be my biggest gripe with this team is it's a great team to stack with a little bit early and a little bit late. The late, I just don't know if there's a ceiling like other teams that we've talked about stacking, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah.
And that'd be my only difference.
For me, what ends up happening a lot is I'll take one of these or two of these first three guys, and then I'll queue up the other guys for later. And then when I get down to them, I'm like, oh no, I want this other guy instead.
Yes,
Right? I
exactly.
have my 2 or 3 stack, and I just maybe I'll throw one of them on, but yeah, it's they are going late, but I'm finding other people to click when they're going.
Yeah, just thinking out, like just looking at their number of ADP, I could just guess of a bunch of them. I'd probably rather go with.
Right. I have grabbed Tirso a couple of times just because
I
he
love him.
seems more of an
Just yeah,
upside. I mean, I don't. He hasn't been good in the minors, but he has had a little bit of power last year that he found. But I've just I don't know grabbed him a couple of times, but not too much. Pretty straightforward. Like you're not going to draft Jason Hayward or Connor Joe.
no,
I think you know kind of an improvement. I think is this catching situation, but that doesn't really. I think Elias
yeah,
Diaz just kind of is a more reliable guy, but it doesn't really
yeah.
matter to us.
For real life baseball, Diaz is a much better move in that regard. We had nothing for us. And it's just the Padres as a whole for fantasy. They are boring because they don't do anything different. So you know what you're getting. This is who they are. And if you look at the ADP, it's a not the easiest thing to build around.
Right. Then moving over to the rotation, I think it gets a lot more interesting. All indications are that Michael King and Dylan Cease are here to stay.
Yeah.
There was some talk in the offseason that one or both of those were going to get moved, but they seem pretty here to stay. They brought in Nick Pivetta, who I've said it before. I just totally whiffed on this year. Like he's a guy I should have been grabbing before he signed, and now I've been chasing him up the board, unfortunately. But I think he's got some value. And then after that, it's kind of a you don't want anybody.
Yeah, no, you don't. We talked about starting pitchers for opening day with Gallen. King gets to start overseas, which is a bit surprising as well. But yeah, it's you either have to take a pitcher early, or it's Nick Pivetta, or you just walk on by. It's the Padres are a very easy team, all things considered.
Yeah.
Really good real life team. But when it comes to fantasy, it's pretty cut and dry, and not a lot of avenues when all things are said. No, but the Pivetta price, I'm honestly surprised at 157 still hasn't gone up even higher. Like that's a really good price tag for Nick Pivetta.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing holding him back is his inability to be a workhorse over the course
True,
of
true.
any season. Like we've seen the flashes out of him, but
Fair.
going from Boston to here is just such an elite change that we wanted him in Boston, and now we should want him here. And I'm just out on you, Darvish. Just put him in the old camp for me. There too many things can go wrong.
Yeah, like the idea of Universe is great, but I don't see a ceiling. Already hurt. It's yeah, just put him out there with the Scherzers of the world and see where it goes.
Yeah. All right. That was a simple one. So that takes us to the last one, the
That is a
Rockies.
simple one.
Uh, yeah. Opened the wrong thing here. Teams, Rockies. That's what we want. Depth chart. I mean, it's the youth is here. Like
Yes.
they brought in Tyro Estrada, but otherwise, I guess Ryan McMahon still, but these guys are here. So I know what I think, but what's your overall impression on this offense in and out of Coors?
If we're talking ceiling plays, I love this offense. Like for underdog purposes alone, and looking at the ADPs I'm staring at right now, there's a lot to like with Colorado. Either as just kind of like a couple like one or two like a 2-man stacks. If you want to go deeper, you can. None of it's going to cost you a lot. Lots of ways to build around it. A couple floor plays, honestly, which is interesting. I actually really like this. Like I know we talk like the bad teams always have fantasy value. The Rockies are kind of proving that right here, especially if you want to play the spike situation, go with Coors Field in mind. Like there's a lot to like with Colorado, actually. Weirdly enough.
Yeah, our fellow co-host Billy he and I are on the complete opposite side of this team. He is in on Michael Toglia. I think he's like 40% Michael Toglia. He's taken a big, like you said, tournament stand on that. And Doyle lead off. We kind of saw him solidify himself. And Tovar is this guy that just hits everything. Doesn't strike out, doesn't walk, just puts the ball in play. I mean, and we're getting, Jordan Beck and Zach Veen are here kind of pushing at it. But I guess for me, it's just, I've mostly been avoiding it. Like maybe it's a bad stance. I just, I don't know what I'm getting. And I don't know. I just been avoiding it. I guess that's as simple as it is.
You're getting a whole lot of volatility, is what you're getting.
Right.
That's you have to embrace the chaos, I guess, if you want the Colorado Rockies, because there's worlds where they're going to be great for a week or two and then disappear for maybe a month. So that's where the chaos comes into play. Like Tovar, honestly, like he's going to hit for like 270 with 20 plus home runs. Steals are an issue, but middle of the order, maybe. Toglia is like, I don't even know what to do with Toglia. Like, I'm not a believer. I'm more on your side of that one.
Mm-hmm.
But in this format, if you want to think he hits the moon, go for it.
Right.
Ryan McMahon's one of the best floors you'll find, period. Like, you could write his stat line down now. So if you want a floor play at 173, which maybe you don't, McMahon's awesome in that regard. The Jordan Beck, Zach Veen thing, totally agree. Like I like them both. There could be a lot of back and forth yo-yoing going on. I think there's a ceiling to Tyro, honestly, with a good floor. So I get your point. I get I like the is it worth it discussion kind of with
Right.
them. To me, it's more the value you get with them because even if you just start with McMahon, you can get like a McMahon, Estrada, and then pick Beck or Veen. You get a mini 3-man all past ADP 170.
True.
Like, I'm not saying it's an elite stack, but those weeks they're in Coors and like there's a lot that could go. You could do a lot worse at that point in time. So it's definitely a very volatile team. Like I love the Britton Doyles and the Tovars of the world. After that, I could listen to both sides of the argument on almost every player. But if you're a believer, it's a great stack. If you're not, plenty of other places to go.
Right. Yeah. For me, it's been the Cardinals have been my bad team that I've been stacking late, but
Which is not bad.
they don't play in Coors half the time, so maybe
Yeah,
I'm the sucker here.
but at least with the Cardinals, you kind of know what the lineup's going to be for the most part. Like
That's true.
for the most part, there's a couple platoons, but you don't really want those guys anyways. So that kind of checks out. Like I was listening to your Central show earlier today, so like I agree with most of your Cardinals takes. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Yeah, because looking at they have Nolan Jones platooning with Kyle Farmer. I forgot Kyle Farmer is there, but yeah, there's a lot of room for wiggle wiggly like Chris Bryant. How long is he gonna last?
Yeah, that's where Zach Veen. That's why I think you could get Zach Veen and Beck at the same time.
Yeah. And well, the simple thing about is we don't need to talk about their pitchers for this
I was
format.
wondering where that was going. Yep.
Like any fantasy, I don't think you have to talk about their pitchers. Like there was a few years ago where I was grabbing some Herman Marquez, but those days are over.
Yeah, like it used to be an underdog even a couple years ago. It's like, hey, take a guy with your last pick because he's still an ace, but he's in Colorado. You'll get his good starts on the road.
Right.
No, just don't bother. The
Yeah.
one guy I would go with, I just don't know if he's going to be in the rotation or not, is Chase Dolander, who's their highest one. He's kind of their top prospect. He's their Bubba Chandler. He's a absolute phenom in the minors. Obviously, things don't always translate to Coors Field, and he might not even make the roster.
Yeah.
He's the only Rockies pitcher I've drafted in drafted hold formats, which is 50 rounds, which is obviously much different than what we're talking about right now.
Right.
But if you're looking for a seventh pitcher, there is a massive, massive upside to Chase Dolander. It's just how much do we see in 2025? It might not be worth the pick, but he is one of your last picks. So I have a couple shares. I think maybe I have to go check. I might even have a couple shares in the best ball with just my very last pick. Going screw it. I'm going to throw a dart with my seventh pitcher and take a guy like Chase.
Yeah. I won't do it, but chase him if you want.
Yeah, there you go. Well done. Well done.
All right. Well, that's it. We've run through the NL West. At this point in the show, we've been saying, who do you think's going to win? I don't know. Do we need to have that discussion of, what?
If it's not the Dodgers, it'd be there's got to be a bet out there. Dodgers versus or the division. In the division is probably plus money. So
Right.
don't take the division on that one. But if it's not the Dodgers, we will all be shocked. It won't just be me and my pessimism towards the Giants. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So let's say Dodgers collapse. Who is your team that
It's
you
the
would say?
Diamondbacks. I think it's the
Diamondbacks.
Diamondbacks. I really like that offense, and if Fott takes the step and they finally get Nelson in there, I think that's a really good team.
Yeah, they we talked about, we were kind of annoyed by them not getting in there, but you can look at it from the perspective they have the depth there, if they need it, and some youth in that depth.
Yep.
All right, Bubba, thank you for jumping on here and doing this with us or with me. Unfortunately, I don't think because of the scheduling snafu and my traveling. Those of you that were waiting on the corner of their seat for the AL West show, I think we are not going to get to that in this year. This is likely the last episode for the season till a little bit in the season for Stacking Dingers, just due to my schedule the next few weeks. So appreciate all of you out there that have been returning and tuning in. We're not going away forever, but we're going to be on a little break here, and then Billy and I are going to get together and talk about what we want to do in season. But I guess I just want to say, I said it again. Say it again though. Thank you everybody out there that's been following along this year and commenting and DMing and it's. This is what I want. When we first launched this 2 years ago, this has turned into exactly what I wanted it to be. Just a place to have these conversations about Underdog and DraftKings. Just talk about this game and grow the game. So I appreciate everybody out there, and everybody in the fantasy community that's sort of embraced me in the show. So.
It's well deserved, man. This show's awesome. I know we've talked about it many times, but the best ball world is a very fun world to play fantasy in, and there's not a lot going on for it. So Stacking Dingers is the go-to place. Not just saying that because I'm here. I've mentioned it on my shows many times. So if people are listening, I probably don't have to say it here, but this is sheep and the boys are doing some really great stuff, and I know it's only going to continue to get better from here. So keep doing what you're doing, man. It's great to see because it's an awesome format that doesn't get the love it deserves.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're out there and you have ideas, the stuff that you'd like us to cover next year, send them my way. What you didn't like, give me all that feedback. We value covering what you guys want to hear and trying to cover the things that are interesting to our audience. So hit us up. All right. A week left. Go out there. Let's fill the dinger. I think it's at 73% or so when we're recording. So
we'll fill that up. Let's do it.
We got some space to fill. So get out there and fill it up. Otherwise, for Bubba and myself, have a good one.